Hey y'all, welcome back to my kitchen, or welcome if you are new. My name is Bethany and I hope that you all are doing well. Thank you so much for clicking on today's What's for Dinner. This week I'm going to be sharing 5 super easy, budget-friendly weeknight dinners with y'all.
Now all my dreams are coming true. I just wanna put my heels on tight, dance with you all night, move to my favorite song.
We're going to kick off this week's What's for Dinner with some homemade shrimp Alfredo. So all you'll need is some Parmesan shredded cheese, some shrimp, some fettuccine noodles, some heavy whipping cream, some butter, some minced garlic, some onion powder, and some blackening seasoning. So first things first, we're going to melt some butter in our pan. Once our butter is melted, I'm going to add in my shrimp and I'm going to cook those down. I added in some minced garlic and all my seasonings that I want to season up my shrimp with. I'm going to let that cook down until the shrimp turns pink, and then I'm going to remove the shrimp from the pan. And I had the pre-cooked shrimp, so it only takes about 5 to 10 minutes to cook down those shrimp. So once I did get all the shrimp removed from the pan, I added in about a half of this big thing of the heavy whipping cream, and then I added in just a few splashes of the whole milk. I went in with my whole little package of the Parmesan cheese, mixed that up and let that cheese melt down. Then I went in with a whole bunch of black pepper. I just prefer to have a lot of black pepper in mine, but you could do less if you prefer less. And then in a separate pot, I cooked my fettuccine pasta until it was done, of course. And then once the pasta was done, I just strained the water off of it, and then I added those strained noodles into my Alfredo sauce, and then I just stirred that up really good to make sure all those noodles get good and covered in that sauce. And then I poured my shrimp back into the pot, mixed those in there as well, and then I cooked my garlic breadsticks in the air fryer by the directions on the back of the package. And then here was our shrimp Alfredo with our garlic breadsticks. Once it was all done, I love shrimp Alfredo, and you can never go wrong with shrimp Alfredo. And then here in Georgia in the summertime, we're going to have some fresh homegrown tomatoes, and we usually always have tomato sandwiches. So I just diced up some of these fresh tomatoes that I got from our farmer's market. We throw some mayonnaise on some bread and some tomatoes, and supper was ready, and I was just as happy as I could be. As most of you know, it's super hot nowadays, being it's summertime, especially here in Georgia. So I didn't really feel like cranking up the stove on this night. So I just threw this big old hunk of roast that I've got from my local Piggly Wiggly into the crock pot with some brown gravy, some cream of mushroom, and some mushrooms. And I also found this Meal Creations like pot roast sauce. I've never used it before, but I really do. I liked it and I enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it. So I'm going to add that in there as well. I've got 2 packets of brown gravy, and I got my carrots. And then I've got the bowl in the bag like rice, and then I've got my seasonings that I'm going to season up my pot roast with. Y'all, my crock pot is not dirty. It's just stained up where I've cleaned it so much and I've used it so much. I've really got my money worth out of this crock pot. But anyway, I'm adding in all my ingredients into the crock pot. I did have just a little bit of water in there. And then I went in with my 2 packets of my brown gravy, my cream of mushroom, my mushrooms, and that package of like pot roast sauce. And then I went in with my baby carrots. I kind of stirred all that up, mixed it all up, make sure it got all good and combined well together. And then I seasoned up my pot roast, and I'm going to add that into the crock pot as well. And I'm going to make sure it's submerged in that brown gravy just to make sure that it all gets good and covered, and it will simmer in that gravy and have all that flavor in there. And then, of course, I did start this that morning before I went to work, and I just put the lid on there and I cooked it on high for about 6 hours. So for our sides to go with our roast, this was way later in the afternoon. I've got some fresh corn that I got from my freezer, as well as some cream 40 peas. I have mentioned in past What's for Dinners that we like to put up vegetables in the summertime, and then we just kind of cook them throughout the year. So that's what those corn and peas were. And then right here, I've got some green tomatoes and a few pieces of some red tomatoes. But also, as I mentioned earlier in today's What's for Dinner, in the summertime, we like to get fresh tomatoes from the farmer's market. So I did get some green ones as well, and we're going to give those a fry. And we're going to have some fried green tomatoes for supper tonight with our roast. So in that bowl, I had some flour, and then in my skillet, I have some vegetable oil heating up. So we're just going to add some salt and pepper onto our tomatoes, and then we're going to dip them in the flour and drop them into our hot grease and let them fry up. And also, I do fry my tomatoes about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. I do flip them about halfway through, and they'll be like a golden brown color once they're done. Here is the golden brown color that you will be going for once they're done. I love frying green tomatoes, and if you've never been to the Whistle Stop Cafe, I highly recommend you go in there because they have the best fried green tomatoes. And I also made some homemade ranch to dip those fried green tomatoes in. So right here, I'm showing y'all the roast. Once it's all done, it's pretty much fell apart. So now it's time to serve up our plate. And here was our plate once it was all done. We've got our peas, our corn, our rice, and our roast and carrots and gravy, and a few of our fried green tomatoes. And I also made some Sister Schubert's yeast rolls. Alright, so for the next dinner in this week's What's for Dinner, it's going to be super easy and simple. This probably is the easiest dinner that I have in today's video. And we're just going to air fry some chicken legs. So I'm just seasoning up my chicken legs. We're going to drop them in the air fryer. And I did add some barbecue sauce to some and some buffalo sauce to some, just because the boys don't really like spicy stuff. But me and my little girl, we do. So that's why I did some barbecue and some buffalo sauce. But I did just kind of add a even layer in the bottom of my air fryer. And then I'm going to turn it on to 400 degrees for about 20 minutes, and then at the 20 minutes I turned them over. I flipped them so that they could cook on the other side, and I did it for another 20 minutes, and then this is how they looked once they were done. I'm just going to remove them from the air fryer and add them into a bowl, and then I'm going to cover them with the sauces that I want to use on them. So like I said, I've got some barbecue and some buffalo, and then for the sides to go with our chicken, I just opened up a can of sweet peas and made some boxed macaroni and cheese, and that was dinner for this night. So I had one barbecue chicken leg and one buffalo chicken leg. Alright, y'all, we have made it to the very last dinner for this week's What's for Dinner, and we're just going to be making some super easy steak fajitas. So right here, I have a top round steak and some fajita seasoning, and I did only use one packet. I didn't use both packets. So I cut my steak up into little strips. I added some olive oil into my skillet, and I got that to heating up. Once it was heated up, I added in my steak, and I cooked that down. I also went in with a little bit of lemon juice, and of course, I went in with my fajita seasoning packet, as well as my bell peppers and my onion, and I just cooked all that down. Then, of course, if you've been here with me for any amount of time, you know I'm really big on seasoning up my meat. So I thought the fajita seasoning packet wouldn't be enough, so I went in with some onion powder and some garlic pepper seasoning, as well as the fajita seasoning packet. And then I also went in with some cumin. I love the taste of cumin in any Mexican dishes, so I always add that to everything I make that's like any Mexican style dish. So I added all those seasonings and gave that steak a good stirring to make sure it all got good and coated. And then I went in with my bell pepper, and at the end I did add onion. I don't know why I didn't get a clip of it. I must have forgot, but I did add just a little bit of onion, but I didn't add a lot because my kids don't really care too much for onion. So I just added just a little bit for me. And then to go on the top of the fajita, I got some of this queso fresco crumbling cheese, as well as my favorite hot sauce, Valentina, and I just topped that on top of my fajita, and that was dinner for this night, y'all. Y'all could do some Mexican rice or whatever you prefer with it, but we just had some good old steak fajitas. But y'all, that's it for this week's What's for Dinner. I hope you all enjoyed it. I love each and every one of y'all. Thank y'all so much for being here today, and I will catch you all in the next one. Bye, y'all.
Now